Michael Lombardi, very critical of Gerard Mayo and very critical of Robert Kraft. And we understand it because obviously he is Bill Belichick's guy. That's his boy. So how Bill Belichick was done towards the end of his tenure and how Gerard Mayo was ushered in, there's going to be a chip on Michael Lombardi's shoulder with all of that. But him having those endorsements of Mike Vrabel, it's not just, hey, man, he was good in Tennessee. He did well there. I think it's a good hire by the Patriots. Essentially what he's saying there, Keegan, by hiring this head coach, the Patriots get better. And I agree. The floor for the Pats went higher. He was a high floor hire, right? You and I think, and we never spoke about it. I wanted Ben Johnson because of the ceiling. I wanted Ben Johnson because of the partnership between him and Drake May for 10, 15 years. And I believe you could have constructed a coaching staff around him with head coach experience, associate head coaches, defensive coordinators that have been head coaches, special team coordinators that have been assistant or associate head coaches in their tenures as well. You could have gone that route, right? I don't hate the Mike Vrabel hire. I really do like it because for a building that is void of leadership, culture, competency, IQ, smarts, leadership. Did I already say that? Void of everything is what I'm getting to. The floor is a lot higher. If Vrabel was the head coach of the Patriots this past season, Keegan, that's a 6-win team in my opinion. It truly is. So it's cool to hear Michael Lombardi with that strong endorsement. And you know it's more than him just seeing Vrabel as a candidate he likes. That's also when it's coming from Michael Lombardi, it's coming from Bill Belichick as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it's a coincidence that we always hear Bill speak first. You know, you get his thoughts on McAfee about the Mike Vrabel hire, and then he's really, glowing in his praise of the former player and all that stuff. And then when you hear Lombardi say it's a lot of the same stuff, I don't think that's an accident. I think it's probably done that way because Michael Lombardi, I think he has a lot of great insight, but a lot of the stuff he does say is going to just echo the thoughts of Bill Belichick. So on that end, not surprised at all. Not surprised that he liked the hire because not only did it fit kind of where Bill Belichick saw it, but, I'm another person who really liked the hire. You said you preferred Ben Johnson because of the way they could have set things up, right? I preferred Mike Vrabel because I thought what they needed early on was kind of a hard reset in terms of culture. And we heard that a lot under Gerard Mayo, where they were trying to reset the culture, but they went so far the other way that they failed to hammer home the, we're going to be accountable, right? And you started to see things creep in that had a negative effect on it. So I thought the one person who has proven the ability to fix a culture within a franchise was Mike Vrabel, and he's going to come in and do the same thing. So the way you felt about Ben Johnson, I felt the same way about Mike Vrabel. I didn't really think they could have gone either way. I think they could have gone either way. I think it would have been a good hire, but Bingo. I leaned this way because at the end of the day, you need a fresh slate, and it's a lot easier to do that with somebody who has experience for somebody who doesn't.
Yeah, it's like, and the comp I give him is the Sean McVay, right? When he was hired, and I've said it before, and I've been like, everyone's like, that guy, that inexperienced, never been the head coach. Oh, cool, good head of hair, he's really smart, has a crazy memory, but that's why you're hiring him as a head coach, and everyone is skeptic. Look at him now. I mean, outside of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I wouldn't take a quarterback coach combo, head coach combo over Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. Like they're two, and that's a really big one in front of them, right?
Yep.
Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan. I'm re-racking this just to refresh people on why you'd go with the Ben Johnson. Look at the best team in the NFC this year, though. It's the Detroit Lions. And look at what Dan Campbell has done. Now, for him, this was his first time as an actual head coach. He's been an interim. He's been an associate head coach for 6 years in New Orleans before he was named to the head coach of the Detroit Lions. Keegan, I always hated the comparison of, well, look at the Detroit Lions. Look how bad they were in Dan Campbell's 1 year. Be patient with me.
Right.
Dan Campbell had 10 years of experience coaching. Gerard Mayo had half of that. Keep in mind, he had 7 years of interim or assistant head coach experience under his belt. That's real. That is something. And Dan Campbell, Miami, New Orleans, then with Detroit is what he went. Mike Vrabel is a more dialed in, a more buttoned up Dan Campbell, a CEO type, knows how to hire coordinators. Look at his track record. Look, better or worse, guys that were eventually hired to be head coaches. It's a Matt LaFleur. It's an Arthur Smith. He had Todd Downing on his staff, Mike LaFleur, guys that went on to be OCs, from assistants to actual OCs. His guy, and I think we'll see him join the staff, Keegan, Terrell Williams, who was with Vrabel all 6 years in Tennessee. eventually his defensive line coach, but associate head coach has been the D-line and run game coordinator for Aaron Glenn's defense in Detroit. That's significant. I hope he ends up in New England. Defensive coordinator, associate head coach. I hope that happens. But you see that where his coaching tree goes, where Terrell Williams and that defensive line, losing Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, getting Zadarius Smith in late in the year and making him work as a high-impact guy. That's what Mike Vrabel brings to it. So I bring the comparisons to the Dan Campbell of CEO, leader, look at the culture in Detroit, man. It's ridiculous. And I think it encapsulates Keegan with the one thing of when Detroit could have kicked a field goal just to beat the Packers, and it would have been fine. It's 4th and 1. Dan Campbell pulled the offense off the field, and Jared Goff went at him, like pissed. We're not going for it. And Campbell goes, all right, you want to go for it? Get the F back out there. Let's go. Let's see what happens. And they get the first down. Dan Campbell defers to his players in certain moments, but he's built up that confidence and that competitiveness and that tenacity that Jared effing Goff, like surfer boy from California, doesn't care about anything. He's the one that's like, we're not going for it. And he didn't say, put the ball in my hands. He was like, we're not going for it. Like, as a team, that's something you'd get with the Vrabel. Taylor Lewan said it in his video he's posted. Logan Ryan said it. We've had it on the show. Those one-score games, you're going to win them. Taylor Lewan said you're going to win all of them. That's outrageous. Because then the Patriots would have had 10 wins this season. If they added all those one-score losses they had, they would have won all those games. But that's a confidence he gives, and that's a culture he brings. So that's why it goes back to Keegan. I'm happy we're having this conversation. The floor is there. The ceiling is there. You know what you get with Vrabel. And again, it's like the foundation of the house wasn't cracked for the Patriots. It was completely taken away, man. It was like everything was wiped out. It was just, you had to start from scratch. There's cracked foundation, and then there's nothing but sand underneath this, and it's slowly sinking. You got to do something about it. And Vrabel is a guy that comes in, puts a whole new foundation down, and rebuilds it back up.
Yeah, one of the big things that I think we're going to hear, and I've talked about it, you've talked about it, is culture, right? He's going to be able to come in and build a culture.
Yeah.
I hesitate a little bit with that because at the end of the day, you don't know how players are going to react. They reacted really well in Tennessee. Who knows if things were so bad in New England that you bring in a head coach who's going to go about it the way that he went about it in Tennessee, it might not work, right? So I hesitate being like, yeah, he's going to come in and fix everything. It's going to be sunshine and rainbows. It might not be. The one thing that I think without a doubt that you can count on Mike Vrabel, he's got relationships. And he knows people across the NFL. And the NFL is a who-you-know business. And taking last offseason and comparing it to this offseason, what are the major differences between the Gerard Mayo hire and the Mike Vrabel hire? Because we heard a lot about culture with both. But Gerard Mayo didn't have the experience. He didn't know people around the league. And that had a huge hindrance on who he was able to bring in on his staff. We heard it all last offseason. They went through about 20 offensive coordinator interviews, and the last guy they interviewed was the one who ended up getting the job.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the case this year, right?
No.
I think Mike Vrabel, he said, I have a long list, but it's a long list of guys he knows, and he's going to put them through the ringer of how are you going to make my guys that are on the roster right now better, and how are you going to, he's talked about it really openly and honestly. I want to be multiple in the way we do things. I want to be creative.
Yep.
I want to put every single player that's currently on the roster in a position to succeed. And if they can't, if we put them in position to succeed across the board and it just doesn't work out, that's when we move on. That's when we make upgrades. But he said it. Everybody gets a fresh slate. If you're in the building right now, you're going to have an opportunity to make this team and contribute moving forward. So the fact that he has relationships with enough people to where he can be selective in the process of picking his staff is huge. I don't think the Patriots had that last year. I think it was like, you want a job? No. You want a job? No. He'll take it. All right, you're on the staff. They're not going to do that this year. So the huge thing with Mike Vrabel is he knows enough people around the league. He's got enough connections around the league to where they're going to be able to build a good staff to set these players up to be successful for the long haul. Not just right away, because we all know they need to bring in more talent. This roster, as currently constructed, is not good enough. But as they move forward, they're going to put people in positions to succeed to where maybe a guy who you didn't think could stick around is going to find himself in a position to where he can have a role moving forward. I think that's huge because it's going to be so difficult turning this roster around. So maybe if you get some guys who are on the fringe and can actually turn out to be players for you, that'll be great.
And that's where the success has been with all the other head coaches we've mentioned, these fourth rounders.
Yeah.
What was Puka Nacua, fifth? Right? Like you have a fifth rounder. Kyron Williams, like a forgotten afterthought. The Saw him play in high school, saw him play at Notre Dame. Always a fan of the guy. What he was for the Rams this season, continues to be for the Rams this season is absolutely phenomenal. It's finding those late round guys. It's getting those guys through free agency.